What's going on, everybody? It is the one and only Masked Q here from Retro Q Gaming. Of course, this does not lend itself very well to lighting and whatnot, but here we are with a very special 60-second episode of our Quack experimental podcast. I figured I'd do a little bit of a public service announcement, and of course, naturally, I lead by example because it's what good, true leaders do. So I decided that, I'd sit here wearing one of my masks. Everyone should be wearing one. Don't be sick. Don't go and die. There's no difference. Now, I'm not going to waste one of my good, proper masks for this. So I'll use one of my motorcycle masks. I've got many of them. I might as well. It's a nice, decent quality. It does kind of chafe a little bit when the stubble is around, but it's beside the point. Anyway, wear a fucking mask, everybody. But we do have a lot to talk about this week anyway. So we're going to get started straight away with Crash 4. That's right. There is a new Crash game officially announced. Now it's called Crash 4 It's About Time. Makes you wonder if it's things like, oh, it's about time they finally released it, or, well, it's about time, as in the game is about time. Because you know how some of these things are with Crash Bandicoot anyway. But so far, we have some good info. This was pretty much almost guaranteed to happen after the great sales of the Insane trilogy. Runs like shit on all consoles, but is amazing at a high frame rate on the PC, which is really funny because I bought it on the PS4, started playing through it, ended up hating it because it was really, really poor to play because of the frame rate. And then when it came to PC, of course, everyone was complaining about that one bridge level. Finished it with no deaths, that particular level. And I finished the entire game by dying 4 times. Yeah, take that, console. You know why? Because actual, proper, playable frame rate. But anyway, Crash 4. So far, we do have a release date. 2nd of October 2020. Currently only announced for PS4 and Xbox One. Will most likely have a PC version and possibly even a Switch version, but of course, no one who is a true gamer really gives a shit about the Switch version. But it's also developed by Toys for Bob, who developed the Insane trilogy and Spyro, or at least they had a hand in developing that on some platforms and in some way as well, because it wasn't completely up to them. But anyway, personally, I will potentially wait for a PC version down the line, and usually even then, only if it's in a sale. It's not something I am super hyped and super into. It is nice to see. It looks okay. However, I just can't commit to it fully in that way. Like I said, it looks decent. But what I will say as well is the trailers, which are obviously currently only showcasing the console versions, run at 60 FPS, which is very, very good for a console game. Unlike the Insane trilogy, which didn't, ran at 30 FPS. Now, of course, this is a trailer. We don't know if it's legit. We don't know what kind of shenanigans are in there. After all, you have to... It's kind of famous at this point, or infamous. You have to question every trailer. First off, you have to question everything that they ever show you or tell you anyway. That's very fitting, I guess. But also, you especially need to question trailers. When they show you a trailer, what version of the game is it? Is it development build? What's going to change in the meantime? And of course, as Arkham Knight has shown us, is it a complete lie? Just by what I mean by that real quick is, if you didn't know, pre-launch, Nvidia were showcasing all these new tech trailers and all this as well, and they were all running at 60 FPS. Conveniently, they pretty much all had no sound, because the game had a hard cap at 30 FPS at launch. So they sped it up in order to do so. Questionable shit. But yeah, you get the idea anyway. So we have to wait and see. Hopefully it does run at 60 FPS. Probably it will only be 60 FPS on the PS4 Pro and Xbox One X. And eventually, obviously, the PC version. It also begs the question, how is this going to work with next-gen consoles? Will there be a next-gen version that runs at a better resolution, better frame rate, possible better quality and all as well? Will it be smart delivery? Who knows? Who knows? But you know who I can guarantee you doesn't know anything about current console development? Well, that's Ready at Dawn. Now, you might know Ready at Dawn because they are the developers behind The Order 1886, as well as a bunch of PSP handheld games. because that's pretty much what they do. But anyway, Ready at Dawn. Everyone was wondering what was the deal with them. Are they going to be doing a sequel? Are they going to be put onto another project or whatever? But Ready at Dawn have now officially been bought by Oculus, of all people. That's Facebook for you guys out there at the end of the day, because parent companies and whatnot. But they're going to be joining the Oculus Studios team. And they're going to be working on original and immersive VR game content. Now, there's not much to say about this one at the moment, but what I will do, I will note that it has a lot of potential. Simply because it could push average gameplay games, like the Order 1886 or most of their handheld stuff, with quality graphics, like the Order 1886, because that was a fairly early generational game, was it? 2014? Maybe 2015? A couple of years into the console. But it did look pretty good, at least at the time. So it's nice to be able to see someone who may have a bit more advanced graphical focus bringing stuff to the VR landscape. Now, I personally have an Oculus Rift, so naturally whatever they put out will probably be on the Oculus Store, so I can just check it out on there. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens, because even though VR isn't the biggest thing in the world, I'm very excited. I'm always curious to see what they do with the technology. However, I think Half-Life Alyx, which I haven't got a chance to play just yet, is the big one for that. But, well, I gotta wait until I get my RTX 3090 Ti, my AMD 4900X, and my PCIe 4.0 NVMe M.2 drive that's faster than a PS5, because that's the only way I roll, baby. I play the best, I demand the best. And speaking of the best, we will completely flip it on its head and go to some of the questionable stuff. Marvel's Avengers. Now, we're not going to talk about the quality of the game or anything like that here, despite memeing it up. But some new info has come out regarding Marvel's Avengers. Now, even though we don't have a system-wide, fully detailed account and all of what the PS5 will do with, we'll just compare it to the Xbox One with smart delivery. Many companies are jumping the gun and offering free upgrades to the next-gen enhanced versions. The latest, of course, being Marvel's Avengers. So it's interesting that they do that, because Microsoft have been very, very transparent, very, very open, and very, very forthcoming with all these details, especially in regards to, say, smart delivery. Sony haven't said anything about it. In fact, kind of famously, CD Projekt Red even said nothing about it at first. That has kind of changed. But at first they said nothing about it because they didn't want to jump the gun ahead of Sony. But then all these other studios, publishers, developers were coming out and just go ahead and saying all this stuff. But Sony never said anything specifically about it, which is kind of strange. But, well, I would say it should be kind of strange, but Sony have been very, very quiet on the next-gen front, other than that one terrible presentation. But anyway, you get the idea here. So regardless of if you have the disc version or the digital version of Marvel's Avengers, you will get the free upgrade when it becomes available. It will also have cross-play online between the PS4 and the PS5. Kind of wonder how that's going to work, because some of them will be running at a better frame rate, which we'll talk about now in a moment. But anyway, it will also allow 2 different modes on the new upgraded consoles. They will have a native 4K visuals mode, which will presumably run at 30 FPS and below, or they'll have a 60 FPS dynamic 4K mode, which will use a dynamic resolution, possibly, lower quality assets and effects and stuff like that, in order to target, maybe constantly or maybe constantly not, hit 60 FPS, which is very good. I'm never a fan of these modes, because I consider it a failure. It's accepting defeat. It's the best of the worst, if you will. The games should be able to hit the performance, the frame rate, and resolution at the same time. That's how they should be designed around it, let alone dynamic. But of course, if it is a technical failure and they do not manage to do this, it's nice to see them give these modes. Of course, this is also a free upgrade on Xbox and all, but the key one is that we're talking about this on the PS5, because they haven't got a full detailed system about it just yet. They haven't announced anything about it. They haven't talked about it. Maybe they're just going to leave it there quietly and developers can do whatever they want. But That's why we're just focusing on the PS5 version in this one. But since we did bring up the Xbox there a second ago, we might as well bring up the Xbox yet again. So, the Xbox Lockheart. I hate talking about this just because I hate the idea that this even exists. So, the Xbox Lockheart, which has been showing up in more and more and more different development kits, not kits, I shouldn't say, more and more different development specs and development design specifications and all this stuff as well. There's been references to it in regards specifically, they've said Lockhart, or they've said like lower clock speeds on CPUs, or less teraflop power, or less available RAM and stuff as well. But anyway, what is Xbox Lockhart? Well, Xbox Lockhart is the long rumored budget version of the next generation console. So basically, when you think of the Xbox Series L, which is the big, expensive, trying to be 4K, trying to be ultra settings, trying to be 60 or 120 FPS version, you have the Lockhart, which is less powerful, which could potentially just be, 1080p, or it could just be 4K with like 30 FPS and low settings or something like that. But the more important thing, and the reason why we're talking about this, it's not because it's being spotted more and more in design documents and all that stuff, but it's specifically because, first off, if all this is true, the Lockhart, or what would probably be the Xbox Series S, or I don't think it would be the Xbox Series L, because let's face it, that's the top end console, but the whole series is an L, so regardless. But we'll just call it Xbox Series S for the sake of all this. So it would be, if all this is true, a 4 teraflop machine compared to the 12 teraflops on the Series L and the 10 teraflops on the PS5. Now, if you go and look around the internet, you can find that there are multiple development studios who have been complaining about Lockhart. They've been complaining about a lot less RAM, about underclocked CPUs. Now, of course, it will still have the SSD, the same speed and capacity, we assume, but they're complaining about all of this, that they have to scale their games down. They have to design them, their next-gen versions, to work on PC, which of course will easily be done. They will have to design them to work on the Series L, and they will have to design them to work on the Series S, and even some of them will also have to work on the Xbox One, Xbox One S, Xbox One X at the same time. So even if you take that out of consideration, and you just look at the next-gen stuff, it means they have to focus on shipping on 2 different hardware units in just the Xbox family. And of course the glorious PC Gaming Master Race version, which will be the best version, as always. But developers are complaining about this, and frankly, I think this is a really fucking stupid idea to launch both of these models. It creates so many problems. Price is an issue. Granted, they can say, oh, if Sony come out and say, yeah, the PS5 is 500, and then Microsoft say, let's just say the Xbox Series L is going to be 550, and let's say the Series S is going to be 300. They could say, yeah, next generation console, half the price of the competition. Then someone goes in and like buys one and realizes, oh, this is a piece of shit compared to the PS5. So it not only that, but also the Series X, and there's the comparisons there too, but it creates confusion. It creates mixed messaging and all as well. And it definitely won't feel next gen. It will still be better than the Xbox One X, of course, for obvious reasons. Mainly the CPU is going to be the biggest jump there. Of course, the teraflops are not created equal, so a 4 teraflop RDNA 2 GPU will be better than a 6 teraflop, GCN based GPU. They're just so bad. But the big one is of course the SSD and the Ryzen CPU. I can never just get the point across with how bad the Jaguar is in every possible way. But anyway, I hope this Lockhart, this Xbox Series S, I hope it does not exist. Sony have the right idea. 1 unit, in a sense. I realize that there's 2. There's a digital version and there's a physical version, like with no disk drive and all that. But the key thing is, no matter which one of those 2 consoles you buy, you are getting the same console in essence. You are getting the same frame rate, the same resolution, the same games, the same visuals, the same settings, the same everything. Sure, there may be a small price difference of 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe even €100. I don't think it'll be that high. That's a whole other topic to talk about. In fact, I think we already did. But the key thing is they have one basic power profile, whereas Microsoft don't. And that can create so many problems. Now, our next little one is going to be a nice little, very, very quick one, and it's just going to be very, very funny. But I couldn't help not bring it up. It's so small of an announcement that I'm really going to have to struggle to fill this for even 2 minutes. Granted, it's me and I can talk forever, and I love the sound of my own voice, but it's still, it's something that's typically so small of an announcement that I wouldn't even really normally talk about it. But we have a new Pokemon game. They teased it. They teased a new big announcement after the one from last week and all. They said, well, we've got another big announcement, a new big Pokemon product coming straight for you, directly to you, next week. Of course, next week has just passed, and we have the stream for all of that as well. And it's true, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company have announced a brand new game called Pokemon Unite. It is a free-to-start MOBA game. They can dress it up in whatever way they want, and they can call it whatever they want. But when you look at it, and you compare it to pretty much anything else, Jesus, I can't even think of it. League of Legends, Dota, it's exactly the same. Or it's 99% the same. It's a MOBA. As I call it, instead of Pokemon, it's Pokemoba. That's the easy way. It is free to start. Of course, there will be in-game microtransactions and all as well. It's coming to Switch and mobile, which makes especially kind of funny when you consider that Nintendo were kind of going to pull back on their their mobile games and all, but that's a whole other topic we're going to talk about in a minute. But just to add, not just a little insult to injury, because, yeah, it's a little bit of insult to injury because of who it is that's actually developing it. But because they have such a big investment and involvement with MOBAs in general, because of Riot Games, that's right, it is developed by one of the companies, one of the studios, under Tencent. You can't see it right now, but I'm smiling from ear to ear, baby. It's so fucking funny to me. But we can piggyback off our last topic and just continue on with another Nintendo-related one here. One that we mentioned just a moment ago. Because Nintendo have announced that they're backing off from mobile games and mobile game development. Now, this is after the massive success, the runaway success of Animal Crossing, which has sold something like 14 or 16 million units worldwide. Dying here, something in my throat. And yeah, that's pretty big. I mean, when you look at it, if you look at the Japanese charts, 5 million physical boxed copies sold in Japan alone, which is huge. Now, this is also to do with the disappointing results for some of their mobile games. Now, you have to remember this is all relative, I guess, because when you look at it, it's like disappointing result. Oh no, our revenue was down from 2.4 billion to 2.2 billion. We only made 1 billion instead of 2. We only made 800 million instead of 1 billion. So yeah, you can see why it's all relative and definitely something to take care of and take into consideration when you're looking at comments and stuff like that. Oh, I really suddenly just don't feel well. Anyway, let's try to bang out this topic real quick. They've also said that they were worried about hurting their reputation by mobile games and their monetization and how they had to do it and all as well. When you look at stuff like Super Mario Run, it was a single one-off payment and that was it. And of course, the game flopped and was pretty much forgotten about very, very quickly. Versus, you have some of the other games that they put out as well, with the likes of, say, Mario Kart, which has a subscription service for its individual app mobile game. It's pretty bonkers in that way. So there are, of course, everything in the meantime, halfway in between. I know the Pokemon one, for example, I've never spent money on it myself, but there's obviously other ones like Fire Emblem and all too, and there's Dr. Mario one, something like that. So it is important to note that they will be pulling back their focus from the mobile games, developing less of them, and then they will be just concentrating more on their home console games and all as well. And all of this comes right on the back of the announcement that they're putting out a new Pokemon free to play, free to start at least, Switch and mobile, Tencent developed Pokemon MOBA. Now, I know the last couple of topics we talked about here, or specifically the last two, were Nintendo, but we'll pull it back a little bit. We'll head on back over to the Microsoft camp. So, Microsoft have announced that all their stores, their physical retail stores, are going to be closing forever, permanently. That's right. They all closed in March for the whole coronavirus and all as well. And there was no update on if or when they would reopen, the plans to reopen and all, until Friday just gone, so just 2 days ago. Now, that means in total over 100% over 100 stores will close. Almost all of them are in the US. There will be a couple of other ones, some of which are in the US and some of which are outside, with the likes of London, New York, Sydney, and Redmond will be rebranded. They will still be staying open, but they will be rebranded as the Microsoft Experience Centers. Not really sure what the difference there is, but everything will go online because naturally, why wouldn't it? That's what everyone is doing as it is anyway. So probably not much will change there anyway, because I can't imagine people were flocking to Microsoft stores to buy anything in an actual store. To be honest, I kept forgetting that they even had physical stores. They don't have any here, and they're pretty much almost all exclusively in America. And I think what's really funny is because after this news came out, I asked a couple of people about it in the US, and the few people I did ask about it, they just all said pretty much the same thing, that their stores were pretty much just always empty and it was always completely a ghost town. Now, there is a big other question to talk about this, really, when you think about two of them, really. But when you think of a Microsoft store, what can even sell in them? Overpriced Surfaces? Xbox consoles? No one buys either of those. So, I mean, I realized they were just trying to be Apple. And, well, failing in that regard, I guess. But there is one other positive sign about all of this, anyway. And that is that supposedly everyone who works in all of these stores, no matter what your position was and all anyway, will be given the option to remain in the company. And probably just do the same kind of thing, just not in a physical retail store. Maybe they'll just handle it all online, or they'll be transferred to somewhere else, or whatever it is. But at least they still get to keep their job. So that is promising in that way. Now, how will it affect Microsoft overall anyway? Personally, it will probably help them, because even if they're still paying the same wages to keep the same people and all in the company, they don't sell anything anyway in the stores. They're all going to be sold online and all that as it was. So if they're not paying rent or any of the stuff associated with that, they're going to be losing less money, if you will, when it comes to that stuff. So that's a positive for them, I guess. I really had to take that off. I just wasn't feeling well. Nothing to do with that. I don't know what it is. And of course, I reconfigured the lighting and all for it as well. So now I'm showing up like a bed sheet with a mirror on it out in the sun or something to that effect. Anyway, back to our final main topic here. This one will probably be a bit of a bigger one, or at least a more higher profile one. I don't really have a huge amount to talk about it in that way, but it's Cyberpunk 2077. Now, we all know it was delayed again for like the 6 millionth time, or the 2077 time just recently. But, well, just the other day, there was a new big, I think they call it Cyber Night Wire, or Cyber City Wire, or Night City Wire. I don't remember what it is. But anyway, they had a new presentation about it. I didn't check it out myself. I want to keep as much of it in the dark as possible for me. Like, I don't understand why everyone watches everything to get all these mad amounts of spoilers and all that stuff, but that's beside the point. So there is a lot of new info, there's some new gameplay, all that stuff has come out and all as well, and what they were talking about, but none of that is relevant to this particular topic. Because the reason why we have this topic here right now is to talk about the fact that they announced a Cyberpunk 2077 anime. That's right, I'm going to say that one more time. A Cyberpunk 2077 officially licensed anime in 2022 on Netflix, and it's going to be called Edge Runners, which is basically like a play or a pun on Blade Runners. Blade Runner, Blade Runners, Blade Runner. Yeah, you get the idea. The people, the officers are Blade Runners. So, yeah, that's a very, very strange. It's going to be handled by Studio Trigger, which are of Kill la Kill fame, My Hero Academia, stuff like that. And one thing I will say that is very, very interesting about me. First off, the fact that it's coming out as an anime doesn't super interest me. I do love anime, of course, but I'm not going to automatically love anything that's anime. It also has the Netflix curse. So, granted, they put out one good thing, they put out 10 shitty things. So, I am very worried about that way. I have no personal attachment to Studio Trigger. I don't believe I've seen any of their stuff, at least outside of games. I think they did the cutscenes and stuff, I think it was in Fire Emblem Fates maybe, but I just only judge it by their proper anime stuff. But the one thing that really does have me hyped and excited for it as well is you have the composer who will be handling the entire soundtrack for this. I'm always going to butcher his name here. Akira Yamaoka, aka Silent Hill. Now that, color me interested, color me curious, color me my interest peaked, if you will. Of course, it's not coming out until 2022, pending even more delays on top of that, so I have at least 2 years before I have to start worrying about any of that. Now, having said that, now that all this is over, we do have one quick little one to round out the entire thing. The reason, of course, why everyone is here. Q, what's going on? What's up? What's going down? What's the 411? What is going on? What are you playing? Well, this week has been a bit of a weird one. Because as we all know, The Last of Us Part 2 launched just over a week ago. Currently recording this on Sunday, so it would have launched 9 days ago, back on Friday. Now, I have finished The Last of Us Part 2. I finished it last Sunday morning. I even went back, New Game Plus, easiest difficulty, and just ran through the game as quick as possible in order to get all the collectibles, all the trophies and everything out of the way so that I would never have another reason to play it, because the game is absolute shite in pretty much every single way. The only redeeming factor outside of the film grain were the graphics. But that's beside the point. The game is shite. The game is shite. I would probably never play it again. The only possible way I could ever play it again, and even then it's only for checking it out, if they release a free smart delivered version on PS5 running at least 60 frames per second, and preferably with a bigger FOV. Preferably. Naturally, of course, it would need a higher resolution as well. But anyway, you get my point. I would load it up. I would test out a little bit of the gameplay, because the gameplay overall was pretty poor. But I would test it out. That's the only way. That's it. Gone. Get it out of here. Gonzo. Done. But back to Xenoblade. Now that The Last of Us Part 2 is over and done with, we are back to Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. I am right at the end of the game, or what I expect to be right at the end of the game. I have a feeling that I can't say I'm at the second last boss, because you know how JRPGs usually go. The last boss, if you will, is usually like 2 or 3 forms or 2 or 3 fights. So if you include what I expect to be the last boss sequel or last boss sequence as one boss, I have a feeling I'm at the second last boss. So I have a feeling with the room I'm about to go into, or the dungeon I'm about to go through, I should say, I have a feeling when I go through that, I get to the second last boss, then I finish, I go to the last boss on the his 2 or 3 different forms, or however it's going to be, because, well, it's JRPGs, they're always like that. So I'm pretty much right at the end. And then once that's done, I can bounce on over to Heavy Rain because it's on Steam as well. So that is important. Heavy Rain on Steam. Just dash it in there ever so slightly. Well, I can't even say dash it in there ever so slightly because tomorrow I will, I said I'm recording this on Sunday. It is technically true. It's like 1:30 in the morning. So later today, at some point today, basically, I will likely finish Xenoblade. And then I'll move on to Heavy Rain, maybe move on to Beyond. Beyond is a little bit tougher to get through because it's the least enjoyable of them. But Heavy Rain I love playing. Game of the Year 2010, by the way, so that's a very important one to note. But there's not much else other than that. Once I'm done with Heavy Rain, maybe Beyond Two Souls, I won't be playing Detroit on here. I'm going to wait. I'm going to play Detroit in its best possible way on my new PC whenever I build that, because I tried the demo on the Epic Game Store and I couldn't play it maxed out with a constant 60 FPS. I was very, very disappointed about that. My aging GPU is a little bit older. Nvidia, please hurry up. Give me the new 3000 series. I need an RTX 3090 Ti Super. That's like 777 teraflops. Just inject it, mainline it right into my fucking veins. But anyway, the big important thing is, even though I doubt I will have it all done by the time I put out another one of these next week, Heavy Rain is definitely happening. Beyond may be happening, but after that, or either after Heavy Rain if Beyond doesn't happen, I'm moving back. Remember, I talk about how I got the important RGB SCART cable for my Wii so I could play GameCube and Wii games on the PVM. Yeah, that's going to be my big one for the next couple of months. It not as long as originally planned because it was all hinging on the fact that Cyberpunk would be out in September. But yeah, it'll give me a chance to take a lot of the boxes. I've got a decent sized GameCube library, I've got a decent sized Wii library. To move them out and bang some of them off the list, that's pretty good. And also, at some point this year, I will even be, I can't promise I'm going to finish it, I can't promise I'm going to put a significant amount of time into it, I will try, but I'm even going to give another shot to that piece of shit game on that piece of shit console, Xenoblade Chronicles X, on the Wii U. But anyway, that's it for the moment. We are done here with our 60-second, what started as a masked episode. Remember, people, wear your fucking masks. But yeah, of our Quack Experimental Podcast. Anyway, in the meantime, I am still not feeling great, so I will wrap this up very, very quickly. Comment section, you know the deal. Any thoughts, questions, feelings, butthurt, salt, opinions, whatever it is, down in the comment section below. Hit the appropriate button, yada, yada, yada. Hit the subscribe button, yada, yada, yada. See you next week when we do another one of these. And remember, winners don't play switch ports.